Hello, sir, and welcome to this Sustain Talk. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you
To
very much.
begin with, I'm sure that everyone present here has this question and is very curious to know what exactly is Miracle Couriers and what's the story behind an investment banker and Oxford educated turning and starting a social entrepreneurship like Miracle Couriers.
Basically, Miracle is in short, it's a last mile delivery service. We deliver for e-commerce companies and other clients. Our main focus is working with people with disabilities, but over a period of time, we've also evolved the model a bit. So imagine a company with a logistics and a courier company, but our focus is only last mile. We are very inclusive driven. So about 50 to 60% of our employees come from very low income backgrounds, and they belong to the deaf community. We also are now experimenting with other disabilities. In fact, in Pune, we have 2 small pickup points where we have women with disabilities. So in a nutshell, we are a last mile delivery service provider. That's what we are.
Okay, so it's really interesting to know that you are dealing with, you hire and you employ low income deaf people. So people with different abilities. I'm sure you might be having some challenges either in hiring or in training them. So how do you tackle and how do you have a smooth functioning that goes on at the back end and the front end?
See, I think what people need to understand that people with disabilities per se face a lot of discrimination, and that's multiple facets of the life, whether it's education, whether it is skill development, whether it's education, whether it is being a productive part of the economy. The stigma is very deep rooted. The conditioning is extremely deep rooted. So we are trying to, in our own way, overcome that. So challenges, there are tons of challenges, starting from education and skill. The general skill what people have is a market-related skill that you get a job in the market. They just don't have. So people with disabilities lack the basic education to go to a premier institute to get a professional degree, which does not give them a job. So it starts at a very basic level, and it kind of multiplies of the discrimination. You will not choose a person with a disability for a job if he's not educated, if he's not gone to college, if he's not done an MBA, or he's not done a master's. So how do you hire such a person? So the fundamental challenge is poor education and lack of skill development. Challenges, there are thousands of challenges, but my main challenge that I've noticed is there's this lack of skill and this lack of basic education. So I'm talking about people with disabilities who haven't even gone to school, or have gone to school but have not even completed grade 10. So you're talking to somebody who's pretty much, you can say, in modern times or today's time, is illiterate. How do you make that person understand that work is important and you can stand up on your own feet and get over the stigma of discrimination? That's the challenge that we are trying to overcome in our own ways.
Okay, it's really great to see that you are having this social element which is there, even though it's a commercial organization, you have it in your operations. Correct. Is there any success story or any experience that you have which is very close to you, related to your employees or the overall working or whatever?
Yeah, we have a lot of success stories. We've seen how our employees have grown. When we started, people used to laugh at us that who will hire deaf courier boys, and how will your back office run by deaf girls? But we changed that. We started doing we started having multiple clients. Then people laughed at us that how will you do e-commerce? Now e-commerce is a fashion. Then we signed up with Amazon. We are a vendor for Amazon, and Amazon is a very, very big name in the market. They have very high standards. So that means that we have done that, right? So that's all like this is, these little bit success stories are going to happen. Employees wise, we have tons of success stories. We have seen boys and girls come from very different backgrounds, and where they have not gone to school, like I said, and now today are running a shift, or they're a supervisor, or they're a shift manager. They've got a team of 20, 30 people under them, and the salaries have increased, their savings have increased. So we've seen that growth in in our employees and their level of confidence. I'm talking about someone who's, please understand, I'm talking about someone who's extremely raw, who's never really worked and now is handling a shift or is a supervisor or almost running a station and has people reporting into them is a quantum leap in growth. And we are always looking at developing more skills in them so that they are really productive citizens of the economy and add value to the company. Standout success reports or successes, we have tons of them. Like I can't really pinpoint one particular employee that has done remarkable. Yes, but we have 2-3 employees that have just stood out from day one. We have one employee, I don't know, take their names for a lot of other confidential reasons, but we have this one girl who's been with us for last 8 years, who started literally with on a salary of 2,500-3,000 rupees a month as just data entry operator, but today is pretty much the top boss, or you can call it the supervisor, shift manager in the mornings, and about 20-30 boys report to her. And just from a woman's perspective, being a woman with a disability has another layer of complexity to it. In any case, in India, women face a lot of stigma, and then you are a disabled woman. It's very, very complex. So how do you overcome that challenge? And that's a success story that I'm really, really fond of. So she's now as good as anybody I have seen in the market. So gradual increase in salary, savings, her confidence levels have changed. She's now, we are grooming her to become a station manager. So that's one success story that really stands out. I don't want to tell her name because there are personal complications involved in that.
That's really fascinating to know. As you mentioned about e-commerce, so the e-commerce as such has created a lot of challenges for the courier service business. And in that, Miracle has chose to reinvent the business by dealing with the last mile delivery. So can you talk more about that and share more?
I think what e-commerce has done is pushing courier companies and logistics companies to adopt technology faster, because you need to track the shipment, you need to track the delivery boy, you need to see the performance on a hourly basis. So logistics companies today are now very tech savvy. Earlier they weren't, but today if you're not tech savvy, you will not be able to survive in the market. So I think these companies, the sector per se is moving rapidly towards technology and avoiding paper at any cost. That's bound to happen. Today, if you're not tech driven, you will not survive. Mm-hmm. So that's a big challenge courier companies are facing. Also, please understand that our background was courier services, which was express delivery. It's called quick deliveries, but we have moved to e-commerce very quickly because we're realizing that paper delivery is just finishing. People don't courier paper anymore like they used to. Bank statements, your telephone bills, your mobile bills, everything is going to go online. It's already online. So if you want to survive, you need to get into e-commerce delivery or e-commerce warehouses, whatever you want to do. That's the future of this business. We took that plunge earlier on.
Talking about the future, as we can see that everyone's getting more concerned about sustainable living and sustainability. So can you tell us what sustainability according to you, and can you also relate Miracle Couriers with sustainability and the concept?
We are very clear that we are a delivery partner, so we follow protocols and SOPs given by our partners. So if a partner, we give feedback to the partners that if you can save on packaging, why not do that? Because packaging also, incorrect packaging or inefficient packaging increases the delivery cost also. So that feedback mechanism we keep having with our clients, that can we not send such a big box? Can we send such a big box for your clients? So that is our own way sustainable. But having said that, we are a delivery company, so we have to follow what the companies tell us to do in terms of delivery. In sustainability per se, like I said, our main focus is employment of people with disabilities. If that fits in the classic definition of sustainability or not. We are very clear that we want to focus on that. Other sustainable practices come into play as we go along, like avoiding paper, being very, very careful or mindful of packaging. We sit with a partner that whether we can do the delivery with an e-vehicle or an e-bike, electric vehicles. Can we avoid diesel? So that's an ongoing conversation that keeps on happening. Please understand that has to work for a business perspective first. It's very easy to sit across and say be sustainable, But if it's sustainable with the price, many companies don't do it. So one has to keep that conversation going always. Sustainability, if leads to an increase in cost, very few people will do it. Your impact has to be very clear in cost benefit, and then people start thinking about sustainability.
Right. Okay, so moving on to the last question. Today we have a lot of young entrepreneurs, also some corporates. So is there any message that you would like to share or give all of them?
I think for entrepreneurs, I'm very clear, boss. I mean, you have to follow your heart. It's as simple as that. Entrepreneurship is not everybody's cup of tea, but if you feel that you want to try entrepreneurship and you're young, you should go for it. There are a lot of, like anything in life, it's about choices and it's their upsides and their downsides. Everybody is not going to be a successful entrepreneur, but if you're okay to understand that and still take a plunge, take the plunge, because there's a lot of failure in entrepreneurship. After 3 years, if you look back and think that you have wasted your life, you may not have the skill set to be an entrepreneur, or you may not have the mental makeup to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is just not getting an exit, getting a valuation, getting money, or fundraising. There's much more to it. If you only want to do that, perhaps you need to revisit the idea of entrepreneurship, is what I tell everybody. And if you ask yourself this question that, no, this is what I want to do, go for it and figure it out. It doesn't work, it's fine. It works, it's fine. It's not the end of the world.
Yes.
Is what I'm saying. It's not like COVID, end of the world. It's okay.
Yes, I think we all are going to keep that in mind. So, sir, we have a few very short and quick rapid fire kind of questions which have been arranged for you.
Sure.
So let's get with that. So first one is, define Miracle Couriers in just 1 or 2 words.
Last mile delivery service.
Okay. Vision or future plan of Miracle Couriers.
To take it pan-India.
Okay. One life lesson that you like to share, or that's that's made you learn a lot, that's very close to you.
Follow your heart.
Okay. And what's sustainability in just 3 words, if you have to?
Sustainability is linked to strategy.
Okay. And if someone wants to get into social entrepreneurship, then what's it in just one line, what will you suggest to him?
Go for it, yeah. Go for it. Like I just said, follow your heart, go for it. If you made up your mind, go for it, take the plunge. I can't do anything about it. If you have decided, take the plunge. That's it.
Okay. So that's it. Thank you so much, sir. Your story was truly very unique and inspiring and fascinating.
Yeah, Dhruvan was amazing, but I have a lot of questions, maybe 2. You always focused about sustainability being expensive, right? You kept saying that, don't you think if it's mass consumerism, we can actually make it affordable, right? And isn't it like a one-time investment, sustainability, for example, a solar or e-vehicle, which is one-time expensive, but overall in the future, it becomes a lesser, your everyday expense. So could you just put some insights on, your myth or whatever you thought about it as an investment expensive choice? Like, what's your experience when you speak to your partners about this?
I think there are 2 ways to look at it. One is that if partners get so busy in the day-to-day, people get so busy in the day-to-day rigmarole of life that you don't really think about it. If a system is going perfectly fine and you need to change the system, people get a bit conscious of it, right? Why should I change the system when it's working fine? And when you try to change the system, the first question automatically comes is cost. If I'm doing something for 8 rupees and if I can bring it down to 6, great. But if that requires an investment, as a small company, people tend to always ask, why can't the government support me or anybody support me to do that? I don't have that kind of money to make the investment. I agree with you. Solar eventually will pay off for it, but to put a solar plant or put solar panels may require a significant amount of money that everybody may not be able to do to see that 1 rupee or 2 rupee change.
Correct.
Having said that, sustainability should always start from the big corporates is what I believe, and it will have a trickle down effect. If big corporates tell the vendors that you have to have this and only then we'll work with you, vendors will not have a choice. What I mean to say is that small companies always find ways not to do it. A system which is working perfectly fine will always work fine. So when you tell me that change something with it, you always like, why should I do it? It's working fine. Our margins are intact. You start thinking in cost, unfortunately, and that's the sad part of it. So we need to overcome that idea of cost. Even in our business, with people with disabilities, when we started a courier company, we were expensive. So all the clients told me that, why are you expensive? Which I now completely agree with them, that if a courier company is charging 15 rupees in Pune for a delivery, and we were charging 18 rupees because I hired disabled people, nobody gave us business. Nobody gave us. People say, why should I pay you for 3 rupees more? That's your business model. You need to bring it down to 15 or to 14, and then you can get a business. So we are a cherry on top. It's a good feeling that a courier is delivered by a deaf person, but people will not pay a 5 rupee premium for it.
Absolutely.
Now, if I tell them that I'm sustainable, because client said, I don't care, boss. I don't care. I'm hiring a disabled person. That's your problem. Right? So sustainability has to be well thought of, which I say has to be strategic in nature. Your mission, your goal, your vision, your cost, your objectives, everything have to be aligned. Then you can think of a strategic proposal, sustainable proposal. Sorry.
Amazing. And a last question from my end. Okay, we have a question here. What was your inspiration to get into something which is so out of the way? It's like, who does this? It's very rare. Yeah.
So my background is investment banking. I did banking for 2 years. I was very unhappy. I think very early, fortunately for me, I got the opportunity to work in investment banking. It's a dream job for a lot of people. I kind of very early on realized that I will not like it. And this is not I want to make it a career out of it. It's not my scene in life. I don't want to spend the rest of my life doing Excel. I always was socially driven, and I got an opportunity to work in the social sector. I jumped, and I wanted to just see how that works. The social sector was also very traditional for me when I spent the time in the non-profits. Then I realized that I can try to bridge both. So have a commercial model which has a social angle to it, and I will try to bring both the worlds together. That was in a way my motivation. And let's see how it goes. Fortunately for us, it's worked well for us, and we have taken it forward. But the basic idea was to bridge commercial and social together.
Right. And I'm sure, like, what kept you motivated? Just the social aspect, or there was something? I'm sure you didn't make money at all initially. All entrepreneurs, we don't make money. So how did you keep yourself motivated throughout?
I don't know. We'll ever make that kind of money because we are still very socially driven. So I don't know if money is the end goal. Yeah, you need to be comfortable and you need to make sure that bills are paid. But I think motivation for me is, I think it's something that to create something of your own, to see something taking shape, to have this idea and giving it a form. I think there's a very creative process around it. So that for me is motivating. It keeps on motivating me. And I have this story that I tell a lot of my friends, that when I left banking, my grandparents actually called my parents and actually told my parents that I think Dhruv is kind of losing his way and he's left such a plum job, and I think is he doing drugs? So my dad, mom got very worried about me, and when I left for Tsunami, but then I got a full scholarship to Oxford. Then my grandparents and my parents said, "Oh, we always knew that you're a special person and you'll always go to heights." I come back. I don't take a job in investment banking. Don't take a job in McKinsey. My grandparents and my parents say, "Ye gadha hai. Nothing is going to happen." And then suddenly I get an award from the President of India. They again said, "You are a special person and you are amazing." And then my business was going through a very difficult time. Then my parents said, "What a mistake you have done. You went to Oxford. You didn't take a job. You are an idiot." But then I get Amazon as a client. They're like, "Wow, you're amazing." So life is all about this. People will say good things, bad things, good things, bad things. It's up to you whether you can keep your intact.
I totally agree. I mean, the thing to lead people to create your own, business is a different feeling. And as entrepreneurs, I think all of us have that drive that we should create something. That's why we are entrepreneurs, right? Otherwise we'd be working. Amazing. So who's your role model, Dhruv? Who do you really look up to? Do you have anyone you look up to?
Yeah, a lot of people in terms of, I read a lot. So athletes and sports professionals and entrepreneurs. So I have a wide range of people that I really look up to, people who have done big things in their life, in any sphere of life, whether that's art or sciences. And someone who basically excels is someone I kind of I admire those people.
Right. Amazing. So amazing. And any books that you recommend the young people can read? Any your favorite reads? Because I know you read a lot. So
Yeah, tons of books. Yeah, I like again. I said, people make the mistake of reading books on entrepreneurship rather than doing entrepreneurship and becoming an entrepreneur. So I, a long time back, decided that I'm not going to read any business books and read books which are just on basically on different things. So I'm just reading a very fascinating book on physics, 7 Basic Rules of Physics. So I find physics very fascinating. So I try not to read books on entrepreneurship because things to do and 1, 2, 3 doesn't really work in the real world of entrepreneurship. But try to read different things. So these books on physics is very, very fascinating.
Interesting. Amazing. I think we've had a very nice, crisp session. You were to the point. You did not make it very flowery as most people would do it. Thank you so much, and hope to see you soon in Pune, Bombay, wherever. And yes. Thank you so much. Yeah. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. See ya. Thank you.